yes, this week, joined by a good mate of mine, Tash. We've already had quite a bit of hilarity in with Pokemon Fun Times.
Oh, yes.
But yes, Tash, the floor is yours.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah.
So, mental health stories, let's go.
Well, I mean, where do you want me to begin, essentially?
I think best way to start it is to ask with you, when it comes to your, like, mental health, because obviously everyone's different, levels are different. It can be anxiety, depression, spectrum between the two or further, you know. Where does yours lie?
Okay, so I suppose I should start off by saying that I have autism, so I'm on the autistic spectrum. Some of the, essentially it's a neurological, I guess, disorder is the best way to put it, where it mainly affects your ability to socialize with others. I know all mental health like shenanigans do that kind of thing, but in terms of what it does specifically, it's essentially like you're like I'm doing a horrible job describing this, sorry guys.
That's all right, take your time.
So essentially an autistic brain is kind of wired differently to a neurotypical brain. Neurotypical, like, meaning, you know, someone who doesn't have like such disorders such as like autism, ADHD, ADD, or any neurodiverse kind of things going on. But yeah, so for me, it's not being able to pick up on social cues as easy as the average person does, and the sensory overload part is especially a big thing. So for me, it's sound. So sometimes I hear sounds and it can sound a lot louder than what other people hear it.
Right.
And it especially gets bad if I'm in a confined and crowded space. So that sets off like my anxiety, which I guess is like a byproduct of autism. I'm trying to think what else. So I just had a massive brain fart here.
That's fine.
Yeah, so just various aspects of just socializing and being around people that I tend to have a lot of difficulty in, which, I mean, it's kind of weird because it's like, oh well, like I know I'm gonna say something some autistic people hear a lot and all the time, and people are like, oh god, really? And that is, well, you don't sound autistic, or you don't look autistic.
That's it, isn't it?
And it's like, I just third arm, like, just to make it look as though I'm just normal. Thanks, guys. Want to see the scar? No, it's nothing like that. But it's like, what do you mean I don't look autistic? What do you mean I don't look autistic? Like, what does an autistic person look like to you?
That's it.
Like the problem with like a lot of media portraying like autistic individuals is that they do center around like certain parts of autism, so kind of like, oh, they're socially awkward, but they are highly intelligent beings, because a lot of autistic people do have a lot of talent in specialized areas, mainly science, music, and the arts, but it could be in like different kind of sectors, but they're like hyper focused into. So
that's it. Yeah.
So yeah, like if you want to ask them anything about like a specific subject, they'd be your person. But when I say autistic spectrum, it's like I prefer it to see it as a kind of star chart rather than a kind of linear sort of graph, because there's always that danger of that kind of, oh, you either don't suffer that badly, so we can just pile on more and more responsibilities, and then it just gets overwhelming, or oh, you're so autistic, maybe we should just not give you so much. In fact, don't do anything. Just kick back, relax. But I am capable of doing things. No, it's fine. And it's like,
it's like that level of judgment before you're even allowed to do your thing.
It's that kind of level of assumptions sort of thing. So yeah, the reason why I prefer to look at it as a star chart, like a color wheel kind of thing. So like a star chart, so you have like different sort of symptoms of like autism, and it's like different levels of severity, and every autistic person has different levels of severity on that star chart. So for me, I'm definitely sensitive when it comes to like the sensory overload. I definitely do hyper focus on specific subjects.
Yeah.
And I may not be great at picking up social cues right away, but I can adapt once I know why certain things are acceptable or unacceptable in a neurotypical society. And that comes on to another thing, that's masking. So masking essentially is when a neurodiverse person kind of adapts and masks or hides their autistic or ADHD or ADD or anything along those lines kind of traits to fit in with normal people. And I read something recently where like, until you know you're autistic, like, you know you're different, but you don't understand how you're different. And so you kind of take different traits of like different characters that you admire or different people, and you try to sort of stitch them in like a kind of like some Frankenstein-y kind of personality kind of thing. And then once you kind of learn, oh, well, you have autism, suddenly you're like, oh, then which part of me is real? And then you're kind of deconstructing different personality traits that you've inherited over the years, and you're just left with like this kind of husk where it's like, who am I really? And it's terrifying.
I can imagine. I was about to say that just by hearing that, it's terrifying.
Yeah. And so you're kind of left trying to sort of figure out who you are as a person, and without the kind of other influences that you've garnered like all this time. And Cody pretty much has hit the nail on the head with, we become chameleons but with personality traits in a sense.
Yeah.
That is pretty much the perfect way of like putting it. And it's especially more noticeable in girls when they're masking, because a lot of research into autism focused more on boys because the traits are so much more obvious with them than they are with girls. So up until like recent sort of years, they just solely focused on boys because it was that much more obvious. But with girls kind of learning to mask their autistic traits and things in order to fit in, they could go years without being diagnosed. I mean, thankfully, I was diagnosed at a very early age. My parents sort of spotted like the signs like very early on.
Yeah.
And I got the help that I needed from an early age. But I didn't quite know that I had autism until I think it was when I finished high school that I think I became more like that. I kind of learned that the difference I felt actually had a name, and that was when I guess I kind of became more. Then things just started kind of fitting in, but at the same time also deconstructing the personality traits that I've kind of picked up over the years, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And I think part of that deconstruction, along with being bullied because I was different to other kids in like primary, middle, and high school, it didn't really help the whole bullying sort of thing. So then it contributed to like the whole depression side of things, and as well as anxiety. But up until I think how long ago it was. Up until like a few years ago, I didn't seek help, and that was
Right.
because I was told by like I was told by some adults that like, oh, like if you go to seek mental health help, your job prospects will be affected. Like you may not get hired because they wouldn't want to hire someone who got like mental illness, or like, oh, people won't like you as much because like they'll just think you're so sad and all the time, and they just wouldn't want that. So for years I just kind of tried to bottle up that kind of those kind of like awful emotions that the years of bullying and kind of deconstruction of like autistic sort of disorder and other bits and pieces sort of from life as such. And it wasn't until a few years that I was in a really, really bad place. There was like already a lot of stressful stuff going on around the time, and that's like missing out like some of the abusive relationships. I would say abusive relationships. It was just like, just a quick summary with like the whole abusive relationship situation. It was more like both guys that I was with probably didn't like certain parts of me and tried to change me in such a way that fits their ideal kind of girlfriend or partner or whatever. And I think it messed me up greatly because especially with the second one, because the first thing that the second one did was give me kind of like a PowerPoint presentation on how like successful relationships work, and it was just so clinical. Like it was like a kind of spider chart of like, oh, like good communication leads to this and this and this, and I'm just like, that should have been like the first red flag. But I'm just like, this feels so clinical. What
you
what
feel
is
more
this?
like you don't feel like you're in a relationship by that point. You feel like you're a patient seeing a doctor, or you're someone. It feels like you're a university student witnessing a lecture, and you're also part of the experiment. You know.
Yeah, in a sense, because the second one was into some really kinky sort of stuff. I'm not going to delve too deep into that in case it violates like terms of service and stuff. But when they were introducing me to that kinky things, I wasn't necessarily comfortable with it. And because they just literally threw me at the deep end without like a life ring or something like that, I was really uncomfortable with it. And and when I expressed my discomfort for that, like they like to my face, they were like, oh, like that's cool, sort of thing. But then they post, I guess, memes like saying, when you're feeling horny but your partner or whatever doesn't want it, sort of thing, and they just put this like disappointing like the character sort of looking so disappointed,
right,
like, and unsatisfied, and it's like, and I have called them out on it, like, privately, sort of thing. I'm like, dude, what on earth was that? And I think eventually it came down to a whole breakdown where, well, they tried saying, oh, I think I'm like polyamorous, sort of thing, and I also fancy the other person. And to be fair, because I love that person that much, I tried making it work. I tried making it work, and I'll like try and I think I'll also sum it up like with something later on, but essentially, like, I tried to make it work between the three of us, but I noticed that they were spending more and more time with the second person, and that just made me feel so depressed to the point where I was feeling idle over this. And it was then that someone had told me, like, no, you're thinking those types of thoughts because you feel so unloved. You need to get out of it now. And so I did the very brave thing of sort of dumping their ass and like saying, look, this isn't working. I'm going to have to leave,
awesome.
sort of thing. But not without them sort of telling me how unsupportive of a girlfriend I was, and how I wasn't like willing to drop everything like work or other familial responsibilities like that just to go on that train ride with like long train ride to them like they do thing. And I was like, dude, I gave you, like, okay, dude, I attended their guardian's funeral when they passed away just so I could give them some moral support. I gave them an electric blanket when their boiler was on the blink and they couldn't get it fixed until 3 weeks later. So I thought, you know what, I'll give you an electric blanket just to at least keep you warm, sort of thing. And I also gave money for the removal van when the guardian's family wanted that guy out of that house. Yeah, so if I was being so unsupportive, what was that? Yeah, just a little thing. Cody did bring up a very good point. Do you ever feel sometimes you overemphasize things? Yes, all the time. I feel like I have to sort of like give footnote after footnote after footnote on explanations just to make sure that when I'm talking to people, they have a clear image of what I mean, because I'm afraid of saying something that could be taken the wrong way, and then people will see it as an insult, and then like they just have a go at me because I'm meaning something in an offensive way when I didn't mean to. And I'm often find myself kind of monitoring myself live, as in, as we are speaking, I'm carefully constructing sentences of how to say my point, but without being offensive or being diplomatic, or just like just making sure I'm saying it right. I'm also looking at like the chat to see whether there's any interesting bits and bobs that I could bring up.
I get you. Like, I found it. Sorry, rotating back to that story you were saying about your relationship that you had.
Go for it.
Look, hearing that from an outsider's perspective, I find it as if like it was a disgusting act from the bloke anyway. It kind of felt like he's using the guise of a polyamorous relationship to basically get with someone he's more inclined to want to be with, which is really bad. Like, I won't go into too many details on my end, but let's just say there was a scenario in a relationship that I had, not with my current relationship with Heather, but a previous one, where I could have potentially been in a relationship with someone, but the caveat was I could only be in a relationship with them if I was perfectly okay to be polyamorous and basically share her with another bloke. And to say it was one of the most awkward like questions to ever be, or like proposals to ever be given, like, and this is bearing in mind they put this forward to me when I basically just opened my heart out to this person, and I'm thinking, like, in my head's basically going, I can't give you this, here's a compromise, and the compromise is just not good. Because don't get me wrong, those of you that may be watching this in the future, don't know, that are in a very successful, happy and consensual polyamorous relationship, all more for you. That's great. Hope you stay happy, because that's the most important thing. For me personally, I cannot stand the idea of it.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about consent, and I wasn't necessarily consenting when they sort of proposed this idea to me as well, but the only reason why I decided to go for it was to keep them happy, and this is a pattern that I have seen over the years when it came to sort of like being like autistic and that, and I can't remember who said in the comments, but essentially we live in such a neurotypical world, and anyone that's not part of that neurotypical kind of thing has to adapt to like neurotypical society. It's pretty much saying that it's. I heard an interesting quote which pretty much sums up the whole thing, but I'll paraphrase it because I can't exactly perfectly. But essentially, it's like failing to provide anyone with like mental needs is like failing to provide accessibility, like ramps and lifts for wheelchair users. Essentially. So essentially, like, don't get me wrong, since there's been more awareness of it, you know, people have at least been a little bit more accommodating, but I still think we have like a lot more farther to go before we can say, yes, this is perfect sort of thing. And Danger has also brought up a good point. Like, we have empathy. It's just hard to express sometimes. Yeah, there is that myth of like autistic people having no empathy. When that is far from fault. Like, it is far from, like, it's such a big lie. I find that because we live in such a neurotypical society, we're constantly trying to, again, mask to adapt to, like, the neurotypical needs? Or something? I don't know. But essentially, because we're masking that much, we become more empath. And we have a bot. Let's get rid of that bot. Thank
Destroyed.
You.
Carry on.
Destroyed. Yes. So, yay. So, yeah, it's just, like, essentially, there's still some like albeit things that still need, you know, I don't know, kicking out and that. But again, at least there's more awareness, so people aren't sort of assuming that those who are completely different are naughty or just lazy or unsociable and things like that. But yeah, so I will go back to that like kind of sort of point with the whole like a few years ago sort of thing, like the amalgamation of the trauma from like the abusive relationships, the bullying at school, kind of like figuring out like who the heck I am, and just a lot of stressful bits and bobs kind of getting on top of me. And there is a trigger warning for this. Like I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore. Like I have attempted suicide. I'm not going to go into detail, like, what I was going to try and do in case that triggered anyone. But it was a very spontaneous thing. It was kind of like the last straw that broke the camel's back. And it was kind of like immediately after that kind of last straw, that after I dropped my sister off at work, I just drove somewhere. And sorry, I'm trying not to like disassociate, if that makes sense.
No,
like,
I get you. It's a tough one when like you're comfortable talking about it, but it's just putting it into words that aren't going to be too triggering. Oh my god, what the hell, exactly, triggering, because you don't want to put your story out there and then someone go, that's me, I'm going, it's that hard bridge that you don't want to cross.
It's that hard bridge. I drove somewhere, and I was really trying to will myself do the thing, but my body wasn't letting me do what my brain wanted it to do.
Right.
It was
like you said, that disassociation between one thing and the other. Yeah.
So after I guess I concluded I couldn't go through with it, I went back to the car, bawled my eyes out to a friend, and then I heard the tap at the window. There was the police, and I was like, shit. Somebody must have saw me and called. And I think it was there that, like, regardless of what anyone said of the whole, like, it will be shameful if you so much as gone to therapy or something like that, or you won't be taking like happy pills or things, like, no, like, I need help. I just went through a really traumatic thing. Like, okay, I'm here, but it's still very traumatic. And I need help, whether anyone approves or disapproves of what I've been doing. But it doesn't matter to them, because what matters is that I'm doing this for myself.
That's it.
Like, I needed this all those years ago, but I didn't, because I was made to think that if I did, then I'd be weak, or I wouldn't be like successful in like applying for jobs or things along those lines. And like, I had to do what I could to sort of prevent that awful thing from happening again, because it's terrifying.
Definitely.
So I had like medication and things. No, I was prescribed like medication. Like my workplace sort of like adapted my like kind of timetable so that I'm not working over, so that I'm only working like certain hours during the day. I went to like a lot of well-being stuff. I just seen Cody's message and I'm like, I mean,
We'll have a communal hug.
We'll have a communal hug.
Can we get some sheep in chat instead to commemorate the hug? That'll help.
Oh God, yeah. Send in the sheep. They're fluffy and stuff, and that's all cool. But yeah, we will all hug you. Yeah, suffocate me. Just suffocate me. Although saying that, I just realised, oh God, that's a lot of people. Oh God, no. Yeah, going back from what I said earlier.
So, suffocate me. That's a kink. No.
I mean, no. No. Yeah, but either way, like I'm sort of like trying to be more mindful, like how I'm feeling, and I'm like, okay, what's making me feel this way, and it's only been like a couple of years ago that I've actually started getting into art, like drawing, painting, and things along those lines, and it's helped, like, you know, sort of being able to express myself and stuff along those lines. Like, I'm still trying to find like a style that I'm like, yes, this is my trademark kind
I get you.
sort of thing. But yeah, and again, it's kind of like deconstructing, like, you know, who am I as a sort of thing when you've been so used to litter picking different personality traits and things along those lines. Yeah, so there's that. But then recently also, yeah, and I know I'm going from one subject to tangent jumping, like it's a thing that I think it's normal for autistic people to do. But yeah, recently I found that well, I will talk about those stims in a moment, Cody, because let me tell you.
So, bring in the stims.
Bring in the stims. But yeah, recently I okay, so it, as embarrassing as it sounds, and this shouldn't be embarrassing, but it is considered embarrassing because of the nature of what I'm going to talk about. So a week before I started what I'd like to call Shark Week, or Lucifer's Waterfall, sort of thing, for people who, or you know what, period. Here we go. Let's use the correct word here, because it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a week before Shark Week, I just like Shark Week because, you know, it's cool that way. I felt like really depressed and felt really awful, and I felt sort of downhearted and hopeless and just feeling horrible. And then I did do a little bit of deep diving into what it could possibly be. Why am I feeling a lot worse than what it should be? Because one of the things that like I feel when I'm on Shark Week is I feel suicidal. Like I have like suicidal kind of ideation, things like just that I don't want to be here anymore, sort of thing. And I came across this disorder, which I found on the Mind UK website, by the way. I was deep diving into this and I saw this on Mind UK, which is premenstrual dysphoria disorder, or PMD for short.
PMD, yeah.
So essentially it's a severe form of like premenstrual syndrome, like causing a range of emotional and physical symptoms every month during the week of or 2 before your period. And it's sometimes referred to as severe PEMS. But yeah, essentially, as I was looking down the list of like emotional experiences as well as the physical symptoms, such as mood swings, feeling upset and tearful, the lack of energy and less interest in activities I would normally enjoy, feeling hopeless, feeling angry and irritable, feeling anxious, feeling tense or on edge, feeling overwhelmed, out of difficulty concentrating, and the suicidal, as well as some of the physical symptoms such as like the tenderness on the breast, the lady lumps as people call it, like pain in muscles of joints, headaches, changes in appetites such as overeating or specific food craving, sleep problems, increased anger or conflict with people around you, and upset if you feel others reject. I looked at all of that and I thought, I'm 90% sure that's what it could be. So I decided to get an appointment with like the doctors, and they got back to me pretty quickish because I did mention like, I don't know, the suicidal stuff, and I think that's probably why they wanted me.
Right. Just to rule out that you're not in that state of a moment. You know?
Yeah, of course. And essentially, they sort of like asked me the questions about, okay, what do you feel like when you're like before or on like your period, or things along those lines. And essentially, I've been given medication, whether it is a hormonal balance thing or whether there's another underlying thing that I don't know, because it is considered as a hormone disorder, and I mean, if it is the hormonal imbalance during those times, then okay, then maybe the medication will be the best thing for me. But if it isn't, then they'll be like, okay, we'll have to try. But yeah, other treatments would include like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. CBT. Yeah.
Yeah, as well as like testing out like other medication or other things before they go to the drastic stuff. If all else fails and nothing works, then they would consider doing surgery to do like a hysterectomy, or I'm going to try and remember this, but I'm probably going to fail. The bilateral Salpingo. Oh god, I am doing such a terrible job.
I know exactly which one you mean. It's a very long-winded word, but it's a very precise procedure.
Yeah, I will actually look it up. Yeah, bilateral Salpingo Oophorectomy. There we go. Which is essentially the removal of the womb as well as the ovary, and
basically the removal of you having any chances of having kids.
Oh yeah, essentially. Because it is, like, as I said, a hormonal disorder. So it could be potentially that. Yeah. So, well, it could potentially be like the thing that, would prevent me from feeling that suicidal again. Hurrah! But, I mean, for the time being, it's just, let's concentrate on the medication, whether that works. Sort of thing. But yeah, it's just like little observations like that. I'm like, okay, I need to get this sorted because it's clearly affecting the way I work and the way I live, and it's not great. Like, and I'm not making the same mistake of like bottling it all up and waiting until the worst thing happens, and then I just feel so that it would take me a very long time to pick up the pieces and put myself back together again. So I think the things I've I guess I kind of learned, or kind of like need to take on, is to just reach out to others if I feel like I'm struggling, or if I feel like I'm like not doing so well. Like, don't sort of bottle it up and let it explode at the wrong time. And be mindful about, I don't know, just what you're feeling. Like if I'm feeling sad, okay, what's making me feel this? Like, what's triggering me to be this way? And is there any, or just things along those lines, and just applying what I was shown at like some of the well-being kind of classes and stuff to, I don't know, just trying to live as normal as I possibly can in a relatively abnormal situation. Essentially. Yeah. And I apologize to everyone if it feels like a whole tornado of just wall of words.
No, that's fine.
But yeah.
I mean, it's nice because it's for fact that you're so. It's always lovely to hear someone be so open about it all, you know. And this is one of the main emphases that I wanted from doing this. The whole idea that the doors are open, you don't have to worry about it. You can go for as long as you want, deep as you want, as long as you're comfortable with it. And the fact that, like, and for some people, and for quite a lot of people as well, the level of stuff that it has been brought up this evening, it could be a lot of things that people tend to keep in that bottle, keep to themselves, and they may obviously speak about it with other people or with their counsellors if they're having counselling, or doctors, etc. And that's fine. But
especially
it's getting that voice out there on a public level so that people that are going through similar things can look at you and just go, it's not just me, you know?
Yeah, it's not just me, sort of thing. Like, especially with the latter part of the conversation with the whole premenstrual kind of thing, because periods still periods as a subject is still considered like
it's like an awkward taboo, and it shouldn't be.
Taboo, yeah, an awkward taboo.
Like, it's a natural part of what females have to go through. Obviously, I'm saying this as a male, but for those who don't know, I work in a doctor's surgery. I've helped women for the past 8 years as well as men. I've had everything from top to bottom. I get it, right? So, but it is very much something that should be just widely accepted as it's a natural thing. Let's be open about it, you know? It's like... There was this very interesting topic I saw where it was I think like a man was going through the male equivalent of what you were going through. And so it was a matter of he had options of going through therapy and counselling, medication, and then if push came to shove, if it was something to do with hormonal issues, effectively it would be the junk is gone. Like, not just vasectomy, but get it all out, you know? It would effectively mean the thing that makes you a man is removed to make you feel happy, but then would you be happy with the result?
Yeah, because it's taking that masculinity away, and
that's it. It's especially and especially in situations like yours, when it's that disassociation of not really getting of where am I in the world? Where am I in myself? Where am I in, like, my friendship circle and all that jazz? And then that gets slapped on you, and it just causes another spiral, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's that kind of... It's kind of like an identity crisis, really. It's pretty much like a very messed up identity crisis. It's just, messed up. But yeah, it's just trying to navigate through mess and sort of clearing up where you can. Sort of, I don't know, just navigating it through, essentially.
There you go.
I do want to answer Cody's questions of like, I wonder what my stims are.
Very good.
Oh yeah, like if I had my camera on the first thing people would notice is how animated I am with my hands when I speak. Like, because...
I met him in person, folks, it's true.
Yeah, like, as a kid, when I was first diagnosed, like, I had a lot of trouble sort of expressing verbally what I wanted. Like, I could make sounds, but in terms of, like, if I had to make sentence words, I know I just had difficulty. So, my parents and I were into Makaton, which is essentially a type of sign language that non-verbal individuals or people who have trouble verbally expressing themselves use in order to communicate what they want. And so when I use like Makaton, and even when I am sort of talking at this moment, like my hands are just moving all over the place. And if I so much as try to like not use my hands while I speak, like I'm clenching my hands right now, and it's I just sort of slow down. It's kind of like shutting down, like no kind of thing. Like some prick in high school like tried to make me feel so self-conscious about me being so expressive with my hands that they gave me the nickname Hands, and it made me feel so self-conscious that I try to really sort of restrain myself from being expressive with my hands, but then but because it was like a comfort stim for me, it really messed me up.
Yeah.
It really,
like that
really
conflict of the comfortable versus the accepted.
Yeah, essentially. But yeah, fuck you, dude, from high school. Like, I realized...
It all comes back to school, doesn't it? Like, everyone we've had on, every story, it all comes back to those bloody school kid antics.
Just like...
Just don't go to school. Like...
Yeah, just don't go to school. Like, it's always school. School's always to blame. I'm putting my middle finger up to, like, the friggin' douche nozzle that like made me feel so self-conscious about something that's completely natural to me, because guess what, bastard, I can make amazing things with my hands. I can do awesome things with my hands. I can like friggin' like do like tons of magnificent stuff with my hands. Like, so screw you. Like,
and if you want an example of those hands in action, I definitely suggest checking out that Instagram link on Tash's name tag there and check out her artwork, which has also been featured in exhibitions recently.
Local exhibitions, not like a whole
Still,
world
it's something.
kind of thing, but it's something, you know.
It's one step towards the National Art Museum, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's a step in the right direction, and that was a smooth segue, by the way. Like, that was a very, very smooth segue.
You're welcome.
Yes. But yeah, no. I'm just looking at the comments like, the dude who said that to you, Tash, he should get a cactus shoved in the ass. I mean, yeah. Essentially. To be fair, Hands is quite tame compared to, I don't know, at least it's nothing like, I don't know, the R word. I just hate the R word. I despise it with every fibre of my being.
Like, there was on that word. Sorry for the tangent, but it's kind of related to obviously everything we're talking about with mental health and everything.
Yes.
It's so interesting how when we grew up in our generation, the R word was seen as like one of those words where it's like, oh, you can emphasize with it, but everyone knows it's all right. When it bloody wasn't.
Oh yeah.
No. Like, you just don't. I found it really bad recently. Like, I've recently been getting back into one of my favorite games of all time, Command and Conquer, and was eyeing up because I know the modding community for Command and Conquer is so dedicated in bringing like new experiences in, and I was completely. I can't say anything but a little bit disgusted by a series of mods from one creator that features in every single Command & Conquer game, from like the originals all the way up to Command & Conquer 3 and Red Alert 3, where he had named them, and I'm not joking, Command & Conquer, the name of that game, R-word, to emphasize what his mod does to the games. To basically, like, the emphasis was that he's modded the games in such a way so that everything's bonkers, it's crazy, it's all over the place, and it's completely different to what the original experience would have been. And I get that, but there are so many different words you could use, and you pick that one?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have thought about this, right, if this was a series of mods that were like not really that popular, not gone to a lot. This is one of the most popular mod creators, and his mods constantly get thousands or tens of thousands of downloads.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of disgraced by that, being a fan of Command & Conquer, thinking using that word in that way when it is offensive and derogatory.
Oh,
and my
definitely.
lord.
Yeah, I had a thought in my head. This is going back to high school, by the way. But like, you know when you sort of like tell, I don't know, your parents, oh, someone's picking on you, sort of thing, and they say, yeah, like, don't rise up to the bait and that. Yeah, well, not that I'm encouraging this, but on 2 occasions when I have done the complete opposite of what I was told to do, and that is using violence. I do not encourage anyone to use that as the first resort. But on both occasions when I had done that more so in self-defense, like, all of a sudden the bullies just stopped picking on me. Like, I am not kidding about this. Like, yeah, okay, I didn't exactly make any friends because of it, but I gained a lot of respect from my peers, but they're probably too terrified to go near me in case they probably did something that would make me want to punch them or something. But it's not even so much as, like, you know, just, I know, bludgeoning people or anything. It was just more pushing them away and just stopping them from getting in my space. Yeah. And this really dumb anecdote, which is so hilarious. Like, this kid who picked on me in, like, maths class, went around the class, like, sort of joking, telling people to punch him or whatever. He came up to me, told me to punch him. He didn't specify how hard I had to punch him. So, one punch later, he crumpled onto the floor, crying and clutching his winded stomach, and I was put in a 15-minute detention for break and had to write an apology letter for his stupidity.
Wow.
Yeah. I got detention
Mental
because
note, bullies, be specific.
Yeah. Or just don't tell your victims to punch you.
Yeah. Or even better, don't be a bloody bully in the first place. Even though you can't just say that. We understand you can't just say that. But to some extent.
But yeah, it's just sad that the one thing that's not accepted in society seems to solve the problems when it comes to bullies. When it comes to, like, bullies sort of thing. Because, hey, they didn't go near me after that. So, I mean, I guess it's a win for me. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we've all had our wins. Like, I had that famous moment in the... Like, I've already talked about that moment in the last day of school where I tackled a guy and beat him up because he said something about my mum. And this was after
Yeah.
4 years of constantly bullying, so I'm like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah, you just snapped.
Fun bonus story for anyone who's keeping tabs. There was another scenario before that, and I believe it was still in my last year, but it was like halfway through the year or something. I don't remember the specific dates. But I just remember we were in a science lesson, everything was quiet, we were just heads down with our books, learning stuff. And in the science lesson, with our big round tables where we have to sit on high stools, I'm sat next to one of the bullies for living daylights out of me on a regular basis. And so I'm trying to work my arse off. You can tell he's not. And he's doing anything and everything in his power to tick me off in some way. Bearing in mind we're all supposed to be quiet, working, and everyone is. It gets to me to the point where I literally, and not lying, got off my stool, picked up said stool, and smashed it over his face. Did it result in me getting detention? Maybe. Did it result in him getting a broken nose? You're damn right it did. Talk about liberation. But needless to say, that happened. No bullying from him ever again. I had other bullies to back up, but him, no. It stops. But this is the thing, like what Tash emphasised, that I want to emphasise as well for me. It may seem as if the best way to get your own back into silence things is to get physical yourself. That should never even be a resort in the first place. Like, the reason why it happened with me and Tash is simply because it got to boiling point and broke the max. And when you don't have that filter anymore, all you've got is that innate animal instinct that says defend yourself, you know? But in this day and age, especially even back then, with how things are, always try and deal with it in a civilized and proper non-violent manner. Because if you end up becoming violent and you end up going that far, you can become the very thing that you have wanted to find justice over.
Yeah, that you swore not to become,
Exactly, and that's the worst scenario you can have, because then that changes everything.
Definitely. Like,
definitely.
Try the legal and peaceful route before you resort to the more extreme measures. But not to harm any innocent people who have nothing to do with conflict at hand.
Oh no.
Like, just between yourself and the main person that's causing you a lot of misery.
And even then, if you feel as if you're gonna get to that point, try and channel it into the proper route. I know not every adult is going to back you up. There are still scenarios, even though we are in 2022, things are much better than they were back in the 90s and early 2000s. I think we can acknowledge that. But it's still not perfect. There will be some adults that you cannot approach, or that you can approach at first, but will not give you the help that you want. But that does not mean you can't approach them. Whether it's your mum or your dad, whether it is your teacher if you feel more comfortable with your teacher, or whether it is the mum or dad of your best friend that knows you well enough where you feel as if I can't say this to my mum, can I say it to you? Even if you're sat with your friend, that can just be something where someone that has that extra level of power over you is there to back you up. You know, it's all that, especially in this day and age. Civilized is way better, because you do not want to end up on that level where you turn into the bully. You never
where you
want to
turn
go that
into
far.
the villain.
Exactly. On that note, let's get things on the wind down a little bit.
Yes.
It's another deep dive into the wonderful world of mental health, especially about the autism and autistic spectrum. It's very eye-opening stuff.
And the whole premenstrual shenanigans, which we don't often talk about, but it should be raised.
Very much more openly talked about. I was inspired by it because I've never really heard those stories in that depth before, so it's very eye-opening and very eerie. But I would love to hear more people come out about it. That's great.
Yeah.
So to wind things down and bring things to a close,
Yes.
I'll ask you the question I've been asking everyone when they come on, which is, if you could get in that time machine, go back to younger Tash, be it child Tash, preteen Tash, etc. It could be any time period of Tash. What would you say to your younger self to either advice for what's going to come into the future, or advice for like going through those issues? What would you say to your younger self?
I mean, there's so many things that I want to say, but I guess the biggest bullet points would be, hey, like, people may think there's something wrong with you, but that doesn't mean you have to believe them. Like, so I'm just trying to word this in such a way that's, if I was talking to my child self, sort of thing.
I get you.
Yeah,
it's like the idea of what they depict as normal.
Yeah, like
they may not see you as normal, but you are normal to yourself.
Yeah, you are normal to yourself, and that's the most important thing, because like your sense of self is so much more important than other people's expectations of what you should be. Also, violence does solve some things, but don't use it as the first resort. Use a 3-strike system. 3 strikes and they get like a punch or a push or whatever. Take up karate lessons, or karate lessons.
Channel that energy.
Channel that energy into something positive, like art or karate or something that you enjoy. And I think most importantly, if you feel as though that you feel overwhelmed, you feel hopeless, or you feel like you can't carry on, just talk to someone you can trust, whether it be your parents, a teacher, or like another relative, or even your friends. Just talk to them. And if things do get so bad that you feel like you can't talk to them, call the appropriate emergency numbers. They have they have people at hand who know how to handle those situations, and point and signpost you in the right direction. You're not alone in this. It's kind of like being on a ship, sailing through a stormy sea. You will come across a lot of storms, but every storm passes. And when that storm passes, go to the port, pay your ship, get all the stuff you need for that next journey, start again.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so, there we go.
Brilliant, that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
So get a boat.
Be the boat.
Be the boat.
Yeah. Be the boat.
Why can I just see SpongeBob where it's like I'm gonna wash the marble, I'm gonna date the marble, I'm gonna be the marble.
Be the marble. Yes.
Love it.
But taking care of your ship through all sorts of storms is kind of like taking care of yourself. Just because you yourself are permanent in your life. Everyone else and everything else is temporary. But you yourself are the most important, most permanent thing in your life. And that's it.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Lovely stuff. Very good.
Yeah. Right.
And